Hi everyone, I'm Damien.
And I'm Jeremy.
Welcome to our Suburb Data podcast, where we cover everything from property investing to expert busting. If you're new here, we share our personal and professional experiences from 22 years in the game, so you can skip the mistakes we made and go straight to property investment success. How are you, Jez?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Oh, not bad, not bad. How's life?
Yeah, it's business as usual.
Property investing?
Yeah, that's right. And I'm pretty keen on this one. This pops up all the time. Should you buy, say, $1 million property or two $500,000 properties? So do you buy one large asset or two smaller ones?
Or you could even go three cheaper ones.
Yeah, well, that brings it down. If you've got $1 million budget, that'd be $333,000 properties.
Okay, well, this is going to be a bit of a shorter episode, but let's sort of step through it. So let's say you've got, $1 million borrowing capacity roughly. What are the, advantages of just purchasing one larger asset type property? $1 million in, let's say Melbourne as an example, or Sydney, or wherever it might be. $1 million is going to get much in Sydney.
The benefit, the pro would be you only have to make one decision. You only have to purchase one property. You only have to research one location. So if you were going to hire a buyer's agent, for example, you'd only have one buyer's agent fee. So that's about the only plus I can think of. Are there any that I'm missing?
I think you're right, like the fixed costs. So you've got like that, maybe that one buyer's agent fee, potentially cleaning, any legal fees, building and pest inspections. So that's just like that fixed cost.
They are small costs though.
Yeah, they are. I think the buyer's agent's most probably the big one, I would say.
Yeah, but a lot of, dare I say it, fake experts will say you got to buy the most expensive property that you can afford. Or they use the word quality. But to me, the only qualities of interest are low risk, high growth, high cash flow.
Yeah.
That's the qualities I'm after, and that's for any investment.
Yeah.
Like it could be crypto, not that I'm into crypto, or shares. Those are the three qualities that I'm interested in: growth, cash flow, low risk.
Yeah, definitely reduce that risk. But you're right. So you've got that that one big one that you can go for. Maybe less hassle. You buy it, you forget about it, but then you might lose a bit of that. That diversification. So you buy two 500s. So let's say you can go for that $1 million property. The yield might be, I'm just throwing a number out there, let's say 3%. Where if you buy or purchase two 500, you typically might get a little bit better yield. So you're getting a bit of that better extra cash flow. And I guess one thing you also need to factor as that cost is the stamp duty in the area. So if you buy it, let's say in Victoria, the stamp duty is going to be higher compared to maybe Queensland. So I guess it just depends. If you're buying that $1 million property in Victoria, well, stamp duties are going to be quite expensive. Where if you go into maybe two different markets, they might be a little bit lower.
Yeah, and I guess it's not a problem for newbies, but big owners of property, active investors, land tax is another consideration. So if you were going to pay land tax in that one city where you're paying your $1 million property and you've already got a principal place of residence there, you could be paying a lot of land tax. Whereas if you diversify across different states, because land tax is a state tax, you might not exceed that threshold, so you might actually pay less land tax.
Yeah, I've seen clients that have come in and they've done it themselves, and they might have purchased 3 properties in Victoria as an example. So they've got that land tax component that impacts their cash flow. So I think that's why it's, good to have that diversification. In your opinion, you had $1 million. What would you do?
Yeah, I would definitely diversify. Rather than have all my eggs in one basket, I would definitely split it across multiple areas. But for me, researching these areas is really easy. So I don't feel that as a stress or a threat point or anything. So a newbie investor who might not be that confident would probably like to limit the amount of time they spend researching and get it right with one property. But there's a misunderstanding that you need to buy close to the CBD, you need to buy an expensive property where high income earners want to live to get better capital growth. That just simply is not true.
Yeah. And with the two properties like the 500 and let's say 500, you could always mix it up. You could go 600, go a little bit more aggressive, or you can bring it back a little bit. It's not a perfect science, but you know what your borrowing capacity is going to be. And I feel like going for maybe 2, you become comfortable. Like if it's the first property that I'm purchasing, I'm nervous. $1 million property sounds a lot. I'm taking on a lot of debt. If I buy that one, great. I feel comfortable. I love the process. Let's go for that second property.
Yeah.
Maybe 6 months down the track, 9 months. I think one thing that you also need to consider is the lending landscape changing. Are you noticing interest rates are picking up? So let's say at this point in time, I can get $1 million, but the rates are rising. That's going to impact my lending. So you have to sort of really think about how quickly that you're going to go, because you really want that asset base early and for it to grow in value. So that's the way that I would sort of think that I'd like to sort of diversify.
Yeah, when I think about those qualities that I mentioned before, people start talking about a quality asset. Things like, it's in an exclusive area where affluent people like to live. None of those things have actually influenced higher capital growth rates over the years. So the 3 qualities that I'm interested in as an investor, capital growth, well, you're not going to get any better capital growth buying in more expensive areas. The second thing is cash flow. And definitely you get worse cash flow the more expensive the property is. There is a clear relationship between higher yields and cheaper properties. And then there's the third thing of risk. So we've already talked about diversification. If you buy 2 $500,000 properties, you've got less eggs in one basket. So you could buy one property in Brisbane, another one in Adelaide, for example, or one in Adelaide and one in Perth. So you're diversifying. The other interesting thing is volatility is a measure of risk. And it's the more affluent areas, the more expensive areas that have higher volatility. CoreLogic used to release this chart, or it was a report. It's called their decile report. I haven't seen one for a few years. And they showed the upper decile by price. So that's the top 10% most expensive suburbs in the country. How have they performed since, I think it was 1990? And they compared that, they compared that to the cheaper end of the market, the 10% of cheapest suburbs around the country. And they showed this history where there were 4 occasions where property markets went backwards, where the national growth rate went backwards. And in all 4 cases, these expensive areas plummeted the most. But in one of those 4 occasions, the bottom decile didn't actually go negative. And the chart shows that they are far more stable. So it's funny, whenever there's a recession, whenever prices are going backwards, you hear the opinionated types say, there'll be a flight to quality. But there isn't a flight to quality. Buyers actually go for affordable. There's a flight to affordable, and that holds up the bottom end of the market. So from a risk perspective, more eggs in one basket, less diversification, higher volatility. So from risk perspective, you want to go cheaper rather than put all your eggs in one basket. From a cash flow perspective, you've got a lower yield in more expensive areas. So it fails on 2 of the 3 qualities that are important for an investor. And with the growth, it's no worse, it's no better. So why would investors not choose to split it up?
Yeah, agree. And I guess if you go with that, like you split it up though, those 2 500s, yes, you are paying that higher. Let's say you are using a buyer's agent, you are paying a little bit more for that value. So it's that maybe 3%, so 15,000 for that 500,000 property. It's a high transaction, but as long as they're getting you that right property, or if you do it yourself, you can split it up, like you said, better yields. It can really help. And from a risk perspective, one thing I've seen time and time again is make sure that you know what your plans are. Like, are you planning on buying your own or occupy a home? I've seen people go really aggressive. I need to buy investments. I need to buy these investments. And then the capacity's gone. I now want to have my family home in 1 year's time. So they've got to sell down to buy. So if you've got that owner occupier in your mind, let's say it's worth $700,000, an example, maybe you can only get a $300,000 investment now. So you've got enough in the bank to go, okay, I'm going to get that property in 12 months.
Right. Yes. So you're saying, okay, if you had all your eggs in one basket, you've suddenly set your sights on your principal place of residence, you've got to sell that big basket. Whereas if you had 2 properties, you might only need to offload one of them.
Yeah, or you don't really want to sell. If it was me, I'm looking, let's say 12 months ahead. I know what my borrowing capacity is now. I'm thinking, okay, let's say I buy that, that investment for, let's say 350, and I buy that new home for, let's say 650, 700. Like, I would rather hold off. Like, why would I go buy 2 properties and then sell in a year? It doesn't make sense because the costs are so high to buy in and sell. So I'm still utilizing all my lending, but I don't want to jeopardize that future owner occupier, because a lot of people think, let's buy all these investments, I'll eventually sell down and buy my own home in 2-3 years time. But the problem is, what if you don't get growth out of those investments and then you jeopardize your owner occupier? You're better off, I always say, always trying to better off target that owner occupier as soon as possible if that's a part of your plan.
Right. Yeah. I think that's it, man. We've covered everything.
Sell down, I think maybe. So
sell down, go on.
Sell down. So with a sell down, you've got, let's say, multiple properties. So I'm not maybe a big fan of, you see it all the time. I've got 20 properties, 30 properties, 10 properties. I think keep it simple. A lot of the plans I've done, I'd say maybe anywhere from 2 to 4 solid investments get you where you need to be. You can sell down a property to pay off your debt. Otherwise, you can maybe wait till your superannuation kicks in at 60. You can talk to your financial planner about that, and then you can pay off your debt, because that's what I normally see. You hold your portfolio, because if you sell one down, you lose that income, and then you'll have a capital gain liability where, and again, it depends when you want to retire. If I want to retire by 50 as an example, I've got a 10-year window that I'm going to be eating into my offset account. So I might have built my offset account up to, let's say, 300,000, and then it's dwindling because I'm not working much. And then my super kicks in at 60, back up again, I'm okay. But I have done strategies where clients are like, I want to buy as quick as I can. I want to buy some index funds, like really, and then go, I want to retire by 50. So that it's a bit of a sell down strategy. Because when you're not working, you sell down a property, your capital gain liability isn't going to be that significant because your taxable income is going to be lower. So planning, it's just things you need to think about. Write it down on a piece of paper or I like an Excel spreadsheet.
You love your spreadsheets.
I love the spreadsheets. But I think we've pretty much covered it. I think diversification is the key thing for me, and get comfortable with that first purchase, because putting it all in one basket, I think it's risky.
Yeah. All right.
Closing thoughts. That's it. So I think any common mistakes I think that beginners might make with this?
Well, the good thing that beginners have on their side is they probably don't have enough money to buy one of these $1 million investment properties. So I guess it's less of a concern for them. But there can be some high net worth individuals that get sold the idea of, you want a quality asset, and quality means expensive.
Yeah.
And I guess they could be entering their first foray into property investing. They're still better off buying cheap. Actually, I thought of another one. One of the other arguments they might say is these cheaper areas have a lower quality of tenant. So you might have tenants getting in the habit of just kicking holes in walls like they do, burning down your house, which of course doesn't happen. But it's really easy to avert that sort of risk. Number one, you don't get too greedy with the rent. If your property manager says, hey, I think we can get $500 a week rent for this, suggest $480. And then you have more applicants, and you can pick that applicant that's got the longest, most reliable track record. And the second thing, of course, is you need a good property manager, so you need to vet them carefully. And the third thing is you get landlord's insurance.
My tip is don't buy an off-the-plan unit for $1 million. That's my main tip.
That is a really good tip, yeah.
So I guess where can listeners go for more resources and information?
Yeah, well, this is not the only episode in our podcast we'll do, and so they can subscribe and they'll get more.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for listening, everyone. As Jez said, subscribe, like, and share to the world. Thanks for listening, and see you in our next episode.